Yesterday, the entertainment world and beyond was rocked by the devastating news that Rob Reiner, the iconic director behind classics like The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and A Few Good Men, along with his wife Michele Singer Reiner, had been found dead in their Brentwood home in Los Angeles. Police quickly determined it was a double homicide with stab wounds, and by Monday, their 32-year-old son Nick Reiner was in custody, booked on suspicion of murder. Reports suggest Nick had struggled with drug addiction and mental health issues, making this a profoundly sad family tragedy that no one could have seen coming in this way. Reiner, at 78, leaves behind an incredible legacy, not just in film, where he started as Meathead on All in the Family, but as a passionate activist who cared deeply about democracy and progressive causes. But almost immediately, this heartbreaking story took a sharp political turn when President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, calling it a very sad thing that happened in Hollywood, but then going on to say that Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, had passed away together with his wife, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump Derangement Syndrome, or TDS. Trump added that Reiner was known to have driven people crazy with his raging obsession over President Donald J. Trump, and his paranoia had reached new heights. He even ended with, "May Rob and Michele rest in peace," but the damage was done. This wasn't a condolence, it was an attack, blaming Reiner's own criticism of Trump for somehow provoking the violence that ended his life, even though police have given zero indication that politics played any role, and the suspect is his own son. Later, in the Oval Office, when asked if he stood by the post, Trump doubled down, saying he wasn't a fan of Reiner at all, that he thought he was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned, and that Reiner had been very bad for our country, pushing things like the Russia hoax. What stands out here is the backlash, not just from Democrats and Hollywood figures who called it disgusting and vile, but from Republicans within Trump's own party, something we rarely see on this scale. Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie, a frequent Trump skeptic but still a conservative, wrote that regardless of how you felt about Rob Reiner, this is inappropriate and disrespectful discourse about a man who was just brutally murdered, and challenged his GOP colleagues, the vice president and White House staff, to defend it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has had her own ups and downs with Trump, called it a family tragedy not about politics or political enemies, and pointed out the pain of dealing with a family member's addiction issues, something many families sadly relate to. Other Republicans, like New York Rep. Mike Lawler, said the comments were flat out wrong, and that this horrible tragedy should bring sympathy and compassion from everyone, period. Even former Trump lawyer Jenna Ellis said, "This is a horrible example from Trump and should be condemned by everyone with any decency, especially surprising given the attempts on his own life." This rare intra-party criticism highlights a tension that's been building. Trump's refusal to show grace, even in tragedy, contrasts with how many on the right demanded civility after the shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk earlier this year, when some on the left made insensitive remarks. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and some conservatives are holding Trump to the same standard. Reiner was indeed one of Trump's most vocal critics, warning about autocracy and calling him mentally unfit back in his first term, but he also condemned political violence across the board. In the end, this incident says a lot about where American politics is right now, polarized to the point where even a family murder gets weaponized, and moments that should unite us in grief instead expose deep divisions. It's a reminder that decency shouldn't be partisan, and that leaders set the tone. As the investigation continues, our thoughts should be with the Reiner family, and the lasting impact of Rob's work that brought joy to millions.